All right, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and today we're going to finally build the Canteen Purse. Okay, these have been super popular in recent years, the whole round purse design, and I wanted to make ours extra special. There's lots of them out there of different designs and everything, but I really wanted to make ours our way. Okay, and so anyway, this is what we've come up with right here. It has an inlay in it. It has this tooled ring, has a tooled shoulder strap, and it's a really great design. It's Janie Sue approved, and yeah, not every purse I make is Janie Sue approved, so got a winner. So anyway. What we're going to talk about first is the template pieces that we make this purse out of, and then we'll talk about the kit that we sent out for the project box that this is based off of. So what I'm going to do is put the camera down on the table and show you all these pieces, and then we're going to start building it. So here we go. All right, so first and foremost, here is the template set. Okay, show you what all we got going on here. So here I have, this piece is the two top gusset pieces. You'd cut two of these out using a 5 to 6 ounce leather that's, you don't want to make it out of veg tan because this is a turned bag, and veg tan is a very rigid leather. So something softer, a chrome tan or an oil tan, something like that. These two pieces make up the bottom gusset. We make them into the puzzle pieces like this so that they're easier to ship, and we don't need a box that fits, you know, that whole piece. If you put those two pieces together and just put a piece of masking tape or something across that seam, it'll be very strong and it'll hold really well while you're cutting out your pieces and stuff like that. Okay. This is a template for the end of the shoulder strap. I don't have my shoulder strap that I tooled over here right now, but I will in a little bit. Anyway, just to help taper and make a nice cut end on your shoulder strap. All right, this is the piece that you would cut out of veg tan, which the shoulder strap also generally would be if you're going to tool it. So you want to cut one of these out of, honestly, you can use anything from 4 ounce all the way up to 7 ounce. 5-6 ounces is probably just about right, but again, you can go a little bit thinner, you can go a little bit thicker, and it'll be fine. But you want to cut out this entire thing, and then you want to cut that little circle out of the middle, because there is the piece that you'll be tooling. And then when you cut that circle out, you want to keep it because you're going to use it behind your inlay to make it pop up. Okay? Now, you don't have to cut that middle piece out. If you just want the whole side of it to be tooled, then do something with it. You can do it however you like, but this one is made to where you can do an inlay if you like. Okay? Then right here we have the back pocket piece. All the pictures of the bag, I never turned it around. It does have a slide-in pocket for the back for cell phones or whatever, and it makes it pretty convenient. Okay, so that's that piece. And then this is the actual bag sides, and you'd need 2 of these cut out of the same leather that you did your gussets and your pocket and everything else. Okay. So that's what's in the template set. Now let's go over to the hardware required for this bag and what we sent out in the project box itself. Get all these pieces off the desk here. All right, so here's what we sent out in the project box. We sent out a hair-on piece that everyone could inlay into their bag, okay? The one I'm making today will actually have an alligator inlay, much like the one I just showed you, but there's one of the hair-on samples that we had sent out, and it is definitely large enough to inlay in there like it needs to be, okay? Also in the bag, we have some of our YKK Everbright zipper. It's the higher end line of the YKK zippers, or one of the higher end line of their zippers. And then, of course, the stops and slides for that. This will be a 2-way zipper, meaning it has 2 slides on it that you can separate, or you can just use one, doesn't matter. Okay, then we've got some small D-rings and some swivel clasps for your shoulder strap. So the D-rings will attach to the purse, the swivel clasps will attach to your shoulder strap. And then a little piece of fabric like that right there. Okay, what this is ripstop fabric. like what they make tents out of. And though it frays crazily, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point, it doesn't rip. You cannot rip this. It is extremely strong for how thin and lightweight it is. And we're going to show you where we use this on a bag like this, and once we get to that point. But it really helps to have that on the bag that we've designed here. Okay? And then we have 2 pieces of piping. They're I believe it's like 36 inches to go around this bag, but we'll measure it in a minute and make sure of exactly what we need. And then with the kit, we also sent out some leather to wrap your piping in. And we're going to make our piping, but we need to cut some of that leather off because it's going to be also what holds our D-ring to the side of the bag as well. So we do need to trim it to fit before we make it into piping. All right, so that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do all the prep work that I can before I have to move everything over to the sewing machine. And that way we can just go from prep work to sew it all together. We'll see how that works out for us. So give me a minute and we'll be right back. All right, so first things first, there is a decent amount of skiving to do on this bag if you want the seams to be nice and pretty and fold out really well. I understand not everybody's got a skiving machine like I do. If you make a lot of bags, it really is worth the investment. It's one of the least expensive machines out there as far as sewing machines and things go. But anyway, I will show you everything I have skived on this bag. Okay, so these are the 2 top gusset pieces. And as you can see, they have a wide skive on one area and then a narrow skive on the other. Okay, that's about ½ inch, maybe a tiny bit more, and that's going to be my seam allowance on the outside. This wider skive, we're going to do a hidden zipper, okay? I skive it that wide so that you don't see all those bright and shiny zipper teeth in the bag when it's closed, and it's just kind of a hint of them. So anyway, we're gonna do that on this one. The bottom gusset, I skived all 4 sides with my normal seam allowance skive, which is about a ½ inch. That wider skive, by the way, is more like 3/4 of an inch, okay? The pocket piece, I skived ½ inch all the way around. And both the body pieces, I skived all the way around about a ½ inch, okay? Now, the piping pieces are the exact same leather, but I ran them through my skiver and they're very, very thin now, okay? They're probably like 1 ounce. And yeah, so again, that skiver is an extremely useful machine. I understand there's lots of folks that are hobbyists that possibly don't need a machine like that, but it sure can help. If you're not able to take the same leather and run it through something like that, or even hand skive it or split it that to that kind of a thickness, you can always use a contrasting color, like an accent color for your piping, and do it that way, or you can make the bag without the piping. It does look really nice with the piping, but everybody's got their limitations and their own comfort level and stuff like that with what they can do, okay? And I fully understand that. I didn't always have all the cool toys I have, but yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some piping together, okay? And the first thing I would need to do before I do that is to measure all the way around this piece, just to know how much extra piping I have so that I can trim that piece off and use those trimmings later for my for my shoulder strap D-rings. Okay, so I've just wrapped it completely around the template, and I'm gonna snip it off. As long as I have a good 2 inches or so extra, then I'm good to go. So I'm still gonna be very conservative and make sure it overlaps really well and everything, but that's how much I cut off mine. Everyone got different lengths of pieces, but I know that they were all long enough to do exactly what we're doing, because I'm the one that cut them all out and split them down. So I know that they're good. Just like that. Okay, now I'm gonna do the same thing with the other one. Wrap it all the way around. Cut off an extra couple of inches here. And I'm going to save those pieces. Like I said, those are going to be for when I go to sew my D-rings on. Even though it seems really, really thin, that's where that ripstop fabric is going to come into play later on. Okay? Now, when I create my piping, the very first thing I do is square off my very end. Okay, normally it'll have a natural edge to it because I cut it the whole length of whatever leather I'm cutting. So I'm going to square that off. And I'm going to use a really wide piece of tape. I got a 3/4 to 1 inch piece of tape here. My little tape dispenser has all my widths on it. All right, and the first thing I'm going to do is cut off a piece that's about 1/2 inch or so long. And I'm going to put it at the very, very end here. Okay, now I'm going to take the rest of that strip and put a piece of tape all the way down it. Okay, and this is what's going to stick my piping core inside of my leather. Now, if you don't have this wide double-sided tape, a lot of people will just take and put their piping core in there and then just sew it down in there. I've never done it that way, but it's probably quicker than what I do. So this is once again the problem with being self-taught and then later seeing other people do it and be like, oh yeah, that probably would have worked pretty good. So now I am going to peel the back off of a little bit at a time, maybe 18 inches or so. And I'm going to lay that piping core. I don't want to lay it past the long piece of tape. I don't want it overlapping that short piece of tape right there. I want it to start right at the end of it. Okay, and that's going to be part of our transition, our splice when it goes all the way around the bag. Okay. So I lay it in there. Like so. And then I pick it up and I want to fold this over around that piping, and I want to make sure that that core of that piping is at the base, like it's in that fold, okay? I don't want there to be some air behind it and in between it and the leather, because then it won't look pretty. Now this is official piping core. It is 5/32, or is it 3/32? I'll look in a minute. Anyway, I get it from an upholstery supply shop, and but if you are in a bind or you don't have a shop like that near you, weed eater string works just fine, okay? Not the good weed eater string, but the cheap crap. The stuff you wouldn't use in your weed eater, go ahead and use it on this. When you buy a Ryobi weed eater, the string that comes with it for free, that's the stuff you want to use. Okay, and I've heard people say that, oh yeah, I just save money and I buy weed eater string. Well, even cheap weed eater string is way more expensive than a giant roll of this piping material. I buy like 1,000 yards at a time, and it's like $50. And I've never done the math, but I promise you that is way cheaper than a small roll of weed eater string. All right, so here we go. I got that folded up in there. And again, I have to do this 2 times, but I'll just show you once so that you don't have to watch me do it twice. All right, and then I take my roller that I don't have here, so I'll be right back. All right, went and grabbed my roller and also went and looked at the piping, my big spool of piping. It is 3/32 is the size that I generally use. It was what was on the demo bag that I just showed you. It's pretty much the only size I've ever really messed with. I have a big spool of larger, but I just haven't used it because I really kind of like how this looks. It's not overbearing, but it's a nice accent size, I guess you could say. Okay, so again, I'm going to do that 2 times, all right? But I'm not going to make you watch me do it 2 times. So the next thing I want to prep is my zipper, okay? So I'm going to grab my 2 pieces of top gusset. And I'm going to take that wide skive and I'm going to fold it completely over and stick it down with some double-sided tape. Okay, so for these I just use my 1/4 inch tape because it's the cheapest. And again, we're doing this to the wide skive because that'll be up against the zipper, okay? Just like that. Okay, now a bag like this, guys, even if you don't have the tools I've got, the sewing machine, all that stuff, you can still make a bag like this. It's not difficult to make, it just takes longer, okay? I had a guy recently commented on one of my videos and was like, oh, you say that you can hand sew all these things, but, you know, the patterns aren't hand sewing friendly. Well, a lot of pattern makers in recent years have made it to where they put all the stitching holes and stuff like that in their patterns, and you have to pre-punch all those holes as you go around, and just really, while it's extremely user-friendly, if you've never like set up your own seam allowance and stuff, it's not really teaching you anything. It's just teaching you how to follow a pattern. And I'm not dissing anybody that makes patterns like that. I mean, even I've bought and made some of these cool patterns for things like masks and bags and whatever else. But if you take a seam and mark it yourself and put your own stitch line and holes in it, you'll learn a lot more than if you're just doing exactly what someone else said to do. So I'm all about learning and teaching. Okay, so again, I'm folding both of these over. And when I do fold them over, I like to fold over 2 or 3 finger widths at a time. Reason being, if I just took one finger and pushed and pushed and pushed, I would end up with kind of scallops along the edge, and I want it to have a nice straight edge to it. Okay. There we go. All right, now, if I put these two pieces right up against each other and compared them to my bottom gusset, they should be relatively the same width, as long as they're within 1/4 inch or so, which this one's maybe a 1/16 of an inch off, but we're good to go. If one of them's way more narrow than the other, then I need to adjust the other one to fit, okay? So, all right. Now, how do we measure our zipper? Well, first thing we do is beg our wife to throw us a marker. Yay, she heard me. Good shot, babe. You see that? That was awesome. She just chunked that from across the room. It landed right here on the table. All right. Now, let me back up a spot. Let me go get all my zipper making tools. And we need to put the slides on the zipper, and then we need to measure it. So let me quit getting ahead of myself and grab those tools. I'll be right back. All right, so here I have my little zipper jig, okay? I did zippers for several years before someone showed me one of these. It is a pretty handy little tool. But again, not 100% necessary. It just takes a little bit longer if you don't have this and a little bit more fumbling with your zipper. But I'm gonna use it because I don't want you to watch me fumble for a while. All right, now I'm gonna zoom in a little bit and make it where you can see my zipper. So all the zipper jig does is hold my zipper my zipper slide for me. Okay, so I just set it on there, and that's its only purpose. It just holds the slide so that as I wiggle the zipper onto it, it's like having a third hand, okay? And it just makes that process quicker and easier because it's being held. If you've got someone else that can hold your slide for you, then you don't need the jig. But oftentimes I'm working in here by myself, and it's a pretty cool tool. We do have these on our website, and they really are worth every dadgum penny. And anyway, all right. So I separated my zipper. I slid it on. I was talking all about that jig without like showing you what I was doing. Sorry. Separated the zipper. I slid both ends into the slide and then pulled it towards me. Okay, now I'm just going to go back and do the other side. All right, now when you're doing opposing zippers, I'm going to zoom in a lot more. Okay, when you're doing opposing zipper slides where they face each other like this, it's very important to get them exactly straight. You don't want more zipper on one side than you do on the other. Okay, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to purposefully screw that up so that you can see what I'm talking about. So there we go. If you see that big old weird bubble right there, that's because there's way more teeth over here than there are over here. Okay, so I have to take that slide back off. Put it back on my jig there. I'll zip up the other one here. And I have to just pay attention that if I'm holding this zipper up here, it's like this one is just one tooth longer than this one. So that's how I have to try to put it into the slide, is one tooth, put the other one in, and then there we go. Now, if you look at the zipper now, you can see that there's a little bubble on each side of the zipper tape. Okay, and that's fine, that's natural. But if one side has a larger bubble than the other side, then you need to readjust those again. Okay, if there's just one tooth difference, you'll barely notice it. But the way to notice it is, again, that one bubble will be a little bit bigger than the other bubble. And if you held the zipper, zoom back out. And if you held the zipper up like this, then it would, past the slides, it would have like a turn to it, and it wouldn't just be straight up and down anymore. Okay, so that's how you can tell if you got your zipper slides on there evenly. Okay, now remove this jig because I have hurt myself on that more than once, hitting my elbow on that sharp part there. And so yeah, let's get that out of the way. Now we need to measure our zipper. Okay, so what I'm going to do is lay it up here and just kind of center it on one of my top gusset pieces. Okay, and then 1/2 inch, let's say 3/4. Let's be safe and say 3/4. 3/4 of an inch in from each end. I'm going to take this magic marker and I'm going to mark out some teeth. And then I'll just mark out all the teeth all the way to the end. Okay, now those are the teeth we need to remove. Once we remove the teeth, we'll replace them with a stop, and then this zipper will be ready to use. Okay, I don't have them all over here, and I don't know why, because there were 2 of them on this table yesterday. All right, let me grab my maul. I'll show you how I remove teeth from a zipper, and then I'll show you how I put the stops on. So we'll be right back again. All right. Got my maul here, and I have my zipper tooth remover tool right here. Okay, we sell these on our website as well. This is one of those cool tools that one night couldn't sleep, and I was sitting there watching Facebook videos, and one of the Facebook ads was like, "You need this tool," and I watched what it did, and I was like, "Oh, I do need this tool." You can, there's lots of videos out there where you take a pair of side nippers and carefully cut the teeth off of a zipper, but this thing makes it pretty quick and painless. So all I'm going to do is start with the first teeth that I marked with my marker, and I straddle the teeth with this tool and then just hit it. Okay, and I did learn that just a nice firm blow is all it takes. You don't have to wail on it and stuff like that. Actually, the harder you hit it, then the less effective the tool seems to get. So it doesn't look like I'm doing anything as I go down, but when I pick it up in a second, I'll just shake all those teeth right out of there. There we go. Now, see all those teeth just magically falling out of that sucker now? I love that tool. Now, it's really funny. In earlier videos, I called that tool my Zipper Buster 3000. And we had some calls on the website. It's just called a zipper tooth remover tool, and we had a lady call us, and she's like, "I'm looking all over your website, and I can't find the Zipper Buster 3000." So anyway, it is just called the zipper tooth remover tool. Now, I am very careful to take all these little metal shards from that zipper and make sure and get them in the trash, because on your table they will definitely scuff up your leather and cause more harm than good. with scratching up your table and stuff like that. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this one side of the zipper, and then I'll pause the camera and I'll do the other side in the exact same fashion and manner. So I got me a piece of our cutting material here. It's a softer material that when I take this stop, okay, this is what a bottom stop for a zipper looks like, if we can get it to focus. It's got 4 prongs on it, and then, you know, this is the part that you'll actually see on the zipper itself, is just this there. That's the part you see on a zipper, but those prongs are what you have on the back. The prongs are going to go right up against your last teeth that you didn't bust out. And I set it right there on top of that. I kind of push it into that board. Okay, a piece of rubber or something works great for this, or even a piece of thick leather if you have it. But you don't want to do this on like your plastic cutting board, because it won't go into it like it needs to. And if it does, then it's messing up your cutting board. So I take a hammer and I just get it in there good and tight. Okay, so now on the back of this zipper, you see those 4 prongs sticking up there. And I take a pair of pliers, and 2 prongs at a time, I fold them towards each other. Okay, I've learned that if I try to fold all 4 prongs at once, it will screw up, and there's nothing I can do about it. But if I do it 2 prongs at a time, then it works great. And once I've got them kind of folded down towards each other, I take my hammer and I flatten it nicely. Now I do want to make sure, of course, that my slides are facing up when I put that down in there initially. Otherwise, now it's on the back side of the zipper. And functionally, that means nothing. But cosmetically, of course, you want it to look pretty. Okay? So there's what the back side of that zipper now looks like. Get the camera to zoom. There we go. And then there's what the front side of the zipper looks like. Looks like a professional zipper, but from just like anything you'd buy at the store. All right, I'm going to do all those exact same steps on the other end of the zipper, but I don't feel the need to make you watch me do it, because if you need to watch it again, rewind the video. Okay, so my zipper is made, and I always check to make sure it's going to fit where I need it to fit before I start assembling, and we're good to go. Okay, it is about a ½ an inch shorter than my top gusset pieces. So now what I need to do is tape it to my top gussets. But first, I find it, before I tape that on there, I find it easier to scribe me a sew line, okay? Normally, if I'm just making a standard zipper that's not a hidden zipper, then I can put these pieces up here like this, and I don't need to scribe a sew line, because I just use my presser foot and I measure it, you know, just do it by sight while I'm going. But since these are going to overlap the zipper like this, I need to make sure that I am Johnny on the spot with my sew line, because I don't want it too close to the zipper that makes it hard to open and close, and I don't want it so far away from the zipper that it falls off of the zipper tape underneath. Okay, so all I'm going to do is, down here on the end of this zipper, I'm going to butt those two pieces up right over the seam of the zipper there, okay, where I'm separating it. All right. And I will look, I'll measure it and then just tell you what the measurement is, because if you're using a number 5 zipper, it'll be the same. And what I'm going to do is 3/8 of an inch back, I'm going to mark it with my scratch awl. Okay, so 3/8 on that side, and then 3/8 on this side. And that's going to be plenty that I still have another 1/8 of an inch before I run off the edge of my zipper tape. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'll measure that same 3/8 of an inch over here on the other end. And then I will scribe me a line down that piece there. That way I've got something to follow that I know I'm in the right spot as I sew. Okay. So there's what that looks like, and I need to do it again on this piece over here. 3/8. These rulers that we make, I really like Oops, I'm going 3/8 the wrong direction. Because they have this grid line system on them, and every grid square is 1/8 of an inch, so it really makes it easy to measure things like this. So, okay. There we go. All right, so now that I have that done, I'm going to stick my zipper to my leather. 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. It doesn't matter if I put the tape on the back of the leather or on the side of the zipper. So yeah, I'm going to do this one side at a time here. And I'll just take it and I'll go ahead and do it on the edge of the tape. And I'm just going to run it right along the very, very edge of the tape. And then when I get to that bubble where those two zipper slides are, I'm going to just go ahead and move the slides past so that my tape is going to go straight down, and the biggest thing is I don't want to sew that bubble into the leather. So even as I'm sewing this on the sewing machine, I'm going to move those slides back and forth as I get to them so I don't sew that bubble into the leather. If you do, then that'll always be kind of a hard spot for that zipper to cross. It'll be very hard for the slides to go across that bubble. And when I say hard, it won't be difficult for it. It just won't be as nice and smooth as the rest of the zipper is. So why not take that little bit of extra care to complete that? Okay. Okay, so once again, I move those slides down so that they're not in my tape. And that's good enough. Now, I'm going to remove the backings off my tape. I'm going to center this piece right here on the zipper as far as left to right goes, and then also make sure that it comes right up to the middle of the zipper teeth, and I will press it down so that the zipper goes through there nice and straight. Okay, and then once again, I've got that little bit of a area where the teeth or where the slides are. I need to be careful with that area so that I don't accidentally get it too stuck that it won't want to move. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and stick the other side on there, and then it'll be time to start sewing all this stuff together, and we'll see how that goes. We're not going to sew it together yet. We're going to work on some inlay stuff, then we'll start sewing it all together. Okay, so I'm going to take and spin this around, and then stick my other top gusset piece up to it, just butting it up against the first one. And again, as I sew this, that big hump right there, I will avoid by just moving the slides back and forth as I sew it, and making sure that they don't get sewn in there. All right. So there we go. The zipper panel is about ready, and I'm going to set it aside, and we're going to work on our inlay piece. Okay, now I have picked out this nice piece of alligator right here for my inlay. That hair-on piece that I set on top of there a while ago looked pretty dang nice, and honestly, if I hadn't already cut out this alligator, I might consider replacing it with that, but here we are. Now, my circle that came out of the middle of this piece when I cut it out and tooled it and everything, I skived around the very edge, okay? Because when it goes behind that inlay, you want it to make the inlay kind of pop out and be even with the rest of the leather. It's just a really nice look for it. You don't have to do that, but it sure does help, okay? Now, as I'm doing this, I'm realizing also that I forgot to do my edging, my burnishing and stuff on this. So I am going to have to turn off the camera and go do all that. But anyway, there's two ways to accomplish that task. You can skive around the edge of it like I did, or you can just cut this thing 1/4 of an inch shorter all the way around. Either way, it will have the same effect when you put it behind your inlay, that it'll be within the borders of where it needs to be, but still pushing up on the inlay, okay? So, I'm gonna burnish my inside and outside edges of this piece right here, and then when I come back, we will build this inlay piece and get it ready to sew. All right, we are back, and I burnished my edges like a good boy. So here we go. All right, now, where I was going with that is, you wanna make sure and cut your inlay piece large enough, of course, that it goes under all the border and you have lots of room to sew it all the way around. Now, with this particular alligator, he was not very, very big, and I'd try really hard not to waste even an inch of alligator because it is an expensive leather. Okay, so all that being said, I don't have a ton of room to play on the back of this guy. Okay, you can skive the edges of your inlay piece, and it can help it lay a little bit flatter. As far as like right now, if you see when I push down on the edges here, it kind of ridges up right there, which is perfectly normal. But since this is a soft-sided bag, I am not worried about that at all. Like, it's going to it'll look flat when it's done anyway, because you're sewing it to a soft piece of leather that'll allow some of that seam to go inward, and so it'll be just fine like that. I can skive alligator with my machine or by hand, but it's a little bit risky, and I don't like to do it if I don't have to do it. So there you go. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of get a feel for this and figure out where I want to put this, and just get a visual on that. And then I'm gonna put some tape around the back side of my ring here, and then I'm going to stick it back on there. Okay, so unfortunately it is a ring, so I can't just do a big old piece of tape all the way around it. But I can do some shorter pieces in certain areas and use that to get it stuck. But I do want to make sure that the tape does not come inside the ring, you know, where it would be able to be seen after everything's sewn together, because that would just be terrible to have such a nicely inlaid piece with an expensive piece of alligator, and there's that shiny, sticky, nasty looking tape showing its ugly face in there. Okay. Just every few inches or so, another piece of tape. Doesn't take a ton. And then once we have this one stuck together, we're going to start going ahead and sewing it together. We're going to start doing all of our stitching on this thing. We're going to pre-sew our piping to the edges of our side pieces. We're going to sew our zipper down. We're going to sew this to the bag. We're going to do a lot of stitching all at once. All right. Now, what I like to do is I'll go ahead and put it back on there, and I want to make sure that I'm centered, because once again, I don't have a ton of excess underneath that ring right there. So I want to make sure I'm good and centered here, and then I'll just lift a little bit of this and remove the backing off some tape and stick it together. And I'll turn it over here too and make sure that, okay, if I do it right there, am I going to have enough room to get all of it stuck? And it looks like I will. Again, I've got maybe 1/4 of an inch, and that's kind of my safety factor, is 1/4 of an inch. I want to make sure that when I sew this together, it's not going to fall back out from under it. That would be really bad. Okay, so I'm going to stick this on from the front, and then I'm going to turn it over and just look at the back and make sure that I think that we've got a good border all the way around where it's all sewn together. The front is important, of course, because of the aesthetics of having it centered and all that. There's the center line of the gator going down this thing. So if I just stick it on from the back, I might miss that, and I don't want to miss that. Okay, flip it over, check it. Right here I need to pull it a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll just loosen that tape a little bit right there and stretch the gator to fit that area a little better. Like that. You can use glue for this, but I kind of like the tape because, like you can see, I am having to reposition it a little bit. So it just makes it a little bit safer to do. There we go. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this thing is placed right smack in the middle of that hole that it fits in. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll put some double-sided tape on the back of that, or you can glue it if you like. But I want to make sure that it's as in the middle of that as I can get it. As a matter of fact, it's got a lot of sticky on the back of it from when I was tooling it. The tape left a lot of sticky residue, so right now it's actually going to stick on there pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go to the sewing machine now, and I'm going to baste my piping pieces to my main body of my my main side pieces here. All right, and then I'm going to take this whole ring, stick it to the side, and sew it together. Man, those colors are going to look good. I think it's got kind of a 70s motif with these colors, and I dig that. I like it a lot. Okay, so I'll stick that on there and sew it down, and then I'll sew my zipper together. Okay, and we'll do all that on camera. I'm just kind of explaining all the pieces that we've gotten put together here. So that we can just do it all at once. Okay, so when I come back, we're going to be at the sewing machine, and that's what we're going to start working on. All right, so here we are. I am at my Cobra Class 18 sewing machine. I have a size 138 natural thread and a size 21 needle. Throughout this, even though later we're going to change the presser feet, we will maintain the same size thread and needle the entire time. Okay, now, first thing I want to do is go ahead and sew this little piece of gator in here so he doesn't fall out of position. Okay, it's just barely being held on with that double-sided tape. And when I set this in here, what I'm going to do is the very edge of my presser foot is pretty much right up against the opening of that ring. All right, now circles can be very difficult to sew if you're not in practice for it, but we're going to sew these. Okay, so I'm going to set this thing up for about 8 stitches per inch. That's kind of my sweet spot. And I'm just going to carefully sew this guy all the way around the inside of that ring. And I try to make all of my turning motions while the leather, or while the needle is down in the leather, because that will make sure that my my stitches are consistent. Okay, I'm going to just barely make that stitch just a tiny bit bigger. And now I'm just going to sew all the way around this bad boy. Okay. So I'm going to fast forward the video so that, you know, we don't have an hour of me just sewing a circle here. And when we come back, we will put that circle in the back of it and start doing our other sew pieces. Okay. So here we go. Okay, so we got that sewn in, and I could tell up at the very top, I was really just barely catching the edge of that inlay, but we got it, so okay. All right, so there's that, and then like I said, I'm gonna take and put the circle in the back of it here, and I can just use that stitch line basically to make sure that it's centered nicely. And then you can glue all that in, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some big double-sided tape and run all around. Get that a little bit better in frame there. I'm going to use some double-sided tape and run that all the way, you know, across and over and whatever else. Put my tape down there. And I'll just use some big old fat pieces here so that we don't have to use as many. Okay. Sorry, I know this isn't the best angle for your viewing pleasure, but as opposed to repositioning the camera every couple of minutes, I'll say it again, I need a cameraman. Can't afford a cameraman. It's not like YouTube makes me any money, but yeah, it'd be cool to have. All right, so I'm just going to do a few of those. And that way, when I'm ready to stick this to the side panel of the bag, then everything will work out and everything will hold together. It'll all do what it's supposed to do. There we go. Okay, now, all right, before I baste my piping onto one side of this bag, I need to put my pocket on it, okay? And before I do that, the pocket has a rolled edge to it. All right, now it is not an easy edge to roll just because of the idea that it is contoured and it's not straight. All right, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and kind of pre-stretch that fold a little bit with my fingers. About like so. Then we're going to put some tape on it and fold it over, and then we're going to stitch that, and then we'll baste it onto the side of the bag. So when I do this, I make the tape follow the contour of the top of the pocket. There we go. Just like that. Cut off that little bit of excess tape there. Remove my backing. And then I'm going to start in the middle, folding that over. Okay, and then I'm just going to slowly go towards the edges, making sure that that contour is doesn't end up being just a straight line. Okay, and it's going to roll over a little bit on you. It's okay. Once we sew it to the bag, it'll be nice and flat and like it should be. So when you're done, it'll look something like that. So let's go ahead and sew that bad boy onto the bag. Start out with a back stitch, or sorry, sew our rolled edge down, then we'll sew it to the bag. So we're starting out with a back stitch. we go. Get down to the other end, a couple of back stitches again. That is ready. I'm going to clip it to my side of my panel right quick, and then I'll stitch it to it. And just again, it's just a basting stitch. I'm just going to barely stitch along the very edge of it. Give it a little stretch because that stitching pulled it a little tight on there. All right, and again, we're just doing a quick basting stitch. Just going right around the edge. No big deal. All right, basting complete. Now we're going to go ahead and start basting the piping to the edges of this one and the one that'll have the ring on it. The very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my two side panels here and I'm going to baste the piping to them. And by basting, basically I'm just saying I'm going to sew the piping temporarily to them so that they just hold into place while I sew other things, okay? So I'll just take it, and I'll usually line up, I've got the flat part as the bottom of the purse, and I line this up to where that open end, where that extra piece of tape is right in the middle of that, and I start sewing it over here on the edge, okay? And I'm just sewing it right along the very, very edge. This seam will be hidden later, this stitch. Again, it is just to temporarily hold this together, okay? So I'm not using any special presser feet or anything like that yet. I will later use my other presser feet for the piping, but for now, like I said, I'm just barely holding this stuff onto the leather. So all I'm going to do is just run a couple of stitches. Let me center the camera on it again. There we go. So I'm going to get a couple of stitches in here right quick. And even when I'm doing this, if I accidentally run off the edge of the leather, I don't care. Again, I am just temporarily holding this piping onto this piece so that later on it's not something I have to try to hold while I'm working, okay? Now, I'm going to do what's called a relief cut. Where that corner is, it's very difficult to turn this piping to make it match that corner. It wants to bubble up if I do it that way. So I'm just going to do a little cut about halfway through the leather there, and then when I turn it, you can see that it makes just a nice little angle there, and I don't have to worry about it trying to fold up on me, okay? Now, as I go all the way around the purse, I don't need to make those relief cuts because it's not so much of a drastic angle or turn for it. You can clip the piping to the leather if you're more comfortable doing that as you go around, but I've found that honestly it just takes up more time to clip it first and then to go around it. So I just slowly sew and guide it around while I sew the whole thing together. Okay, so I'm just going to go all the way around here, sewing this piping to the very, very edge of my leather. No big trick to it, no secret to it. I'm just stitching that together. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and speed up the camera again so that you're not having to watch me do this for 5 minutes, because it will take me a couple of minutes to get all the way around. And then I'll come back and we'll do the splice that's going to be at the bottom of the bag to make the piping go back into itself. Okay, so I'll be right back. All right, so I've sewn all the way around, and I'm an inch or two away from this bottom corner again down here, okay? And what I'm gonna do is, while I can still pick this up a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and do my relief cut down here. Okay, and you're not trying to make that relief cut all the way to the piping core, because if it is, you might see it on the outside of the bag when you're totally done. So it's just a little bit shorter than that length, and yeah. Now, we're gonna come down and we're gonna sew around that corner, and then we're gonna do our splice. And again, my piping opening, my seam here, my splice area, started right here in the middle. But I didn't start sewing until way back here on this corner, and that way I've got some room to maneuver it while I create this splice. Okay? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hold it, make sure it's nice and flat up against the edge like it needs to be, and I'm gonna find where that core is inside where I started. Okay? So like right around here, and I'm gonna cut off the other piece of piping right where that core is. Okay, so the other end of it gets cut off right where the core is inside this end. Just like that. Okay, and then it's as simple as taking off that piece of tape and tightly wrapping the covering from the beginning of the piping around the tail end of the piping so that it'll look like this. And then, sorry, my finger's in the way. So it'll look like this. And then just sewing all the way across back to your beginning point. So here we go. Take that paper off the back of that. I do want to do it as low to the leather as I can, so that I'm not, the higher you do it, then the more it's going to have length to it when you push it back down. Okay, so I'll take and put that core right up against the other core, tightly wrap that covering around it. There we go. Okay, now all I have to do is complete my my basting stitch, sewing that piping to the side of the bag there. All right, when we get to that seam, as long as my presser feet walk up over the splice, then I'm good to go. That's the only real thing I have to worry about is one of the pieces of the presser foot getting down inside the piping leather. Okay. Just like that. And we'll go all the way to the other end where we had already started our sewing, overlap a couple of stitches. Okay, we'll overlap that a couple of stitches, and we'll pull it out of the machine, and I'll show you what the piece looks like now. There we go. Sewed my tail end in, be all right. There we go. Okay, so there's what we're looking at right there. Let me zoom out just a little bit there. That's not the zoom button. That is the entire side of the bag. I have to do that again on the other side with the other piece of piping. But I want to show you, I do it like that. And then I come back over here and grab my inlay piece, and I set it up there. And having that border of piping just kind of helps me center my inlay piece inside there, all right? So I'm literally just centering it to where I have the same amount of distance on all edges around it. And then I'll use that double-sided tape and I'll stick that on, and then I'm gonna sew around the outside here, okay? So I'm going to stand up so I can see that better. Pull the backing off the tape on the back here. Just wanting to be stubborn. I'm going to put one more piece of tape on here to secure a place that I'm just not 100% convinced about. Like I said, I got real close on my inlay right here at the very top. So I'm going to put one more little piece of tape just right in that area, because I want to make dang sure that I got that sucker stuck. Okay, now I'll turn it back over, center it up real nice, carefully lay it down, and I'm not going to press it down until I've kind of looked at all sides of it and I know that it's exactly where I want it. There, I just moved it without meaning to. But mostly too, this bottom line down here, I want to make sure that it's parallel to the bottom of the bag, because if it's a little bit crooked, that'll be way more noticeable than anything else I can do today. Okay, so there we go. Now again, I'm gonna baste my piping onto this piece as well, but I won't do that on camera because you've already watched me do it once. So what I am going to do on camera right now is go ahead and sew this inlay ring onto the bag itself. Okay. And I guess I should have started in the bottom middle. That's where I normally try to start and stop my stitches and seams, but for some reason I just threw it out here all willy-nilly, like I don't have any rhyme or reason to what I do. So once again, I'm just sewing a border. I will go ahead and fast forward the video so that you don't have to watch me just sit here and sew for 3 minutes. And hopefully we can shorten this video just a tiny bit, because I know that my videos get lengthy and people get bored. So here we go. I did fail to mention, we'll talk about it here while I sew around this. I did fail to mention, after I sew my inlay piece on, let's say you were using the one from the project box where you got that big 8-inch square for that 7-inch circle. After you sew that on into the ring, you need to go ahead and pull or trim outside that stitch line on the back side to trim all the rest of that inlay piece off, so that of course it doesn't come out of this stitch line. I hope that makes sense, and I totally should have sewn it, and I apologize. But yeah, you'll just carefully trim it with some scissors or something, just right up real close to the stitches on the back side after you've sewn that inlay piece in. Okay, so I apologize for failing to mention that. Okay, so I've got that sewn on there, and I am really excited with the look of how this is going. I wasn't quite sure about my color combinations and everything, matching up that peanut brittle color alligator with the Legacy Ranch leather, but I'm pretty, yeah, I'm loving it. Just like the McDonald's commercial. I'm loving it. All right. Next thing is the zipper. So again, I did all my prep work so that I could just come over here and sit down at the sewing machine once. Okay? Now I'm going to come over here. I'll start back here on the back side. Do me a couple of back stitches, and I want to sew down that line that my scribe line that I created there. Okay. And we're going to sew down. I'm going to get 6 inches or so in, And then again, I'm going to move the slides and then continue sewing. All right, so I'm going to stop the machine with the needle down in the leather. Very important to stop it with the needle in the leather. And then I'll find these slides here, and I'm going to go ahead and slide them. I've got to lift my presser foot to be able to do this. That's why you've got to stop it with the needle down. Okay, and I will slide it past where I've sewn, and then it won't matter. Okay, now I will continue stitching all the way down the zipper. All right, now down here at the bottom, I could back stitch and complete my stitch and then turn it around and go up the other side. But I'm gonna get real close to the edge down here where I know I'll be inside of another seam later, and I'll just sew across the base of this zipper for ease and quickness and convenience of not having to do back stitching and cut my thread and all that crazy stuff. No big deal. Okay. Back on the other side, and I'm going to go up the other side doing the exact same thing. Once again, once I get a few inches in, I'm going to stop it with my needle down and move my slides past where I've already sewn. Okay, stopping it with my needle down, grab my slides, lift my presser foot so there's room, go ahead and sew or move my slides past, and now sew up that other side, making sure that I'm good and even here. Okay. All right, get to the other end, do a back stitch or two, and the zipper is ready. All right, so we've got these pieces all sewn together and basted, the piping pieces basted to them and all that stuff. Now what I need to do is find my centers on these, and I should have done it probably before I basted my piping to it. But anyway, I'm just gonna fold it in half here, okay? And find my top center and my bottom center and mark them with a marker. And I did it before I turned the camera on, and I thought, well, crap, I gotta do it on the video, you know? So anyway, again, I just fold it in half, make sure everything's nice and lined up, mark the top center and the bottom center. But then also my zipper piece, I need to center it, okay? So I'm gonna fold it in half here. And mark my top center and bottom center. I did it with a crease there, and now I'll do it with a marker. Okay, and then also I have my bottom piece that we haven't done anything with yet. Once again, fold it in half, mark my top center and front center and back center, whatever. Mark my centers. That's what we're doing. Marking centers. Okay, what I'm going to do is start clipping this thing together just to make sure all of my pieces fit together before I start getting into putting my top and bottom gussets together. Okay, so when I clip this together, oh, well, let me do one more thing here. This one I can't fold in half, okay? So what I'm going to do is set the other one on top of it, and I'll mark my centers off of the other one. Okay, so there's my bottom center. And my top center, there we go. Okay. All right, now when I clip this thing together, I'm gonna start with my top gusset here. Move my zippers to the center for no other reason than my OCD wants them in the middle. And I'm gonna clip it together face to face. All right. And I'm just kind of half-heartedly clipping this together. Again, I'm just checking fit. That's all I'm doing. Making sure things are gonna come together without any problems. And honestly, I mean, I know I've measured these pieces. I know I measured my clicker dies when I had them made. I know I measured my templates. So I know they're going to work. But for my peace of mind, I like to clip everything together first and then go back and actually build it. Okay. So there we go. And this one should clip down to just about at the top of that pocket. Okay, so both ends of it stop just about at the top of that pocket, and that's good. Now, bottom gusset, going the other way. Clipping it together. Okay. And when I get up there, they should just barely overlap 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and that will be absolutely where I need it to be. So I'm going to clip up my other side here, make sure it's got the same kind of overlap on it, and then I can actually build these gussets and know that I'm not going to have any bad surprises when the bag is complete. Okay. And again, this is my peace of mind thing. If you're following the template, I know it's going to work. I quadruple measured it. I have made that mistake of prematurely sending something out to have clicker dies made, and then when it comes back, it's like, oh, that wasn't the finalized pattern. And that's a lot of money. Okay, so there we go. Once again, we've got about an inch of overlap here and 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Good to go. All right. So we did all that work. Now we're going to undo all that work. Take all them clips back off. Everybody loves it when I'm giving classes and we're doing measuring gussets and having to do that. All that work to put the clips on and then take them back off. Okay, so we are going to sew our top and bottom gusset together with a lap seam, also called a single reinforced seam or something like that. Basically, I'm going to lay my bottom gusset on top of my top gusset. I'm going to sew it across there. Then I'm going to fold it down and I'm going to sew it again across there. But there's more. Remember those little D-rings that we're going to have to put in there? Well, there's the little pieces to make those. Okay? So we need to make those right quick, and then we can do that. So we're going to bring out that piece of fabric that we talked about earlier, that little piece of ripstop fabric. And, yeah. Move some stuff out of the way here. There we go. So, this leather is not strong enough to hold it with D-rings, okay? I mean, don't get me wrong, the empty bag will hang there, maybe even the full bag will hang there. But we're talking about a purse strap. It's going to go through a lot of abuse, okay? So the first thing I need to do is make the widths of these match, okay? This is an inch to an inch and a quarter, depending on how I cut yours. Well, this is only 3/4 of an inch, the D-ring itself. So I need to make them match. So the first thing I'll do is trim them to fit. so that fits in there nicely. And the reason that we're going to do this with this thinner leather and this ripstop is because when it's sewn into the seam that we're going to sew it into, we don't want it to cause a big disturbance in the sew line. We want that sew line to go pretty naturally across there. And that's why, again, we're going to use the ripstop fabric. I need to go get my, my rolling cutter, and then we'll cut this. But I need that cutter to cut this. Or, you know what? We'll use scissors. I have scissors. Okay, now I want to cut this piece wider than this because since it frays so badly, I want to be able to fold the edges of it in so that it fits behind that leather pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to cut it about yay wide. That's probably about 1 inch wide. All right, and then what I'm going to do, once I get that sewed, I should have got my bigger scissors, but they're over there where my roller cutter is that I could have used. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a piece of double-sided tape. Starting to see a common theme with that tape. I like this stuff. I'm going to take a piece of double-sided tape and just set right down the middle of the piece that I cut there. Okay, I'm going to rip the back off of it, and I'm going to fold its edges over and stick them to the tape. Okay, it doesn't have to be all crazy straight and pretty and all that. All we're doing is making sure that there's no frayed edges sticking out from under our leather, because that would be bad. Okay, now I'm going to put another piece of tape on there, and I'm going to tape it to that piece. Just like that. Now, when I put that D-ring through here, it is now much stronger than it would be if it were just the leather itself. And when we pull really hard on it, we'll never break that piece out. Okay? That's why we do it this way. That's why we're using the ripstop fabric. Believe me, I love making things that are purely leather and no substitutes. Like, you know, when you take a Chinese belt and cut it open and you find out it has toothpaste wrappers inside of it and stuff like that. Like, it's just crazy. And I try not to do things like that, but sometimes it can be a necessary evil. But again, this isn't a used toothpaste wrapper. This is a piece of quality fabric that's going to be used to strengthen that piece of leather. Okay, I'm going to put one more little piece of tape in there to keep that thing closed. And then off camera, I'm going to make the other one. And then we're going to start sewing our gussets together. Okay, so I'll be back. All right, so I've made these two pieces up, and now I want to take and just kind of they are going to stretch just a tiny bit, and I want to get that stretch out of there. I want to pre-stretch them. Okay, so there's one, there's two, and then also we can cut it down to about 1 inch of length or so, just so we don't have a ton of it sitting out there. Now, to sew these bad boys in. So I need to be very cognizant about where my bottom stop is on my zipper. I apologize, I need to answer this. All right, now, what I want to do is, when I put this thing together, like I said, I have to know where that bottom stop is for that zipper down there, okay? And I want to put the bar, get this thing out of the way, the bar of my D-ring just above the bottom stop, okay? So just beyond it, going toward the center there. So about like so. All right, now, normally when I'm doing a seam like this, I don't tape it. But since we're also holding the that thing into place, the D-ring, I'm going to go ahead and tape that all down. And then I'm going to stick that right across it. And I'm going to sew across that line right there. Okay, and then once again, I'm going to fold it back as soon as that's done. And then I'm going to sew across that line right there. And it's going to look so pretty. I just heard Janie roll her eyes. She's over there working on a rug. I heard her roll her eyes. All right, so I'm going to stick all that together. And I'm going to go ahead. Ordinarily, this would be a very simple seam that I wouldn't bother showing you on camera, but I want to show you the direction that I put it under the machine so that we can sew close to that D-ring, but not accidentally sew through it. So I'm going to reposition the camera back to the sewing machine, and we'll go for it. Okay, so I've got the camera down behind the sewing machine. It's facing me, but you can't see me, so there's where my hands will go. Anyway, and I'm putting the material into the sewing machine this way, okay, because I want to be able to sew closely to that area where that D-ring is. And if I turn it around this way, that left toe presser foot is going to keep me further from that D-ring than I want to, okay? So I'm going to turn it this way and put it through the yoke of the machine, even though, you know, naturally you'd want it sitting out here on the open part of the machine, just because that's just how we think. But instead, we're going to roll it up and put it through the actual throat of the machine, okay? So what we're going to do here is start out in reverse, do a couple of back stitches. And then we're going to go forward through here. And it is going to get a little bit thick right there in the middle. You just have to make sure that we go sew right through it like we ought to. And then when we get to the other end, we'll do another back stitch or two. There we go. Now, we'll pull it out of the machine, clip our tails here, and then we'll fold it back and do our lap seam, or single reinforced seam, as I've also seen it called. Part of the problem with teaching yourself is you don't learn the proper names until it's too late. All right, now, when I open that up, see how nice that is? And that D-ring is just right there where I need it. So I want to make sure that the zipper and everything, this is the piece that's being folded under and not the zipper part being folded under, okay? It's pretty natural for it because there's a lot of thickness on the zipper side, but you still got to just make sure that the right piece is being folded under. All right, so now I'm going to just sew across that. So once again, I'll start out with a back stitch way over here in the border. And then I'll sew all the way across. And what you're left with is a very professional seam. Okay, it's nice and clean. If you did it right, then it doesn't get all wonky where it goes over the thickness there, and it just looks great on the side of this bag. Okay, so there it is. Now, I have to do that exact same thing by joining the other two sides of the gussets. All right, no secret to it, nothing different than the first one. I just have to make a circle out of the gussets. So I'll put my other D-ring right here, and I'll sew it together like this, and then I'll fold it down and sew it again, and that'll be that. Again, I'm not going to make you watch me do it on camera. If you have questions, you can always just rewind the video and watch it again. So when I come back, this gusset piece will be a complete circle, and we're going to clip it back to our bag. Okay. So I got my gusset sewn into a circle now, and now I'm just going to take and I can trim off that excess right there, and there. There we go. All right. Now, I think this bag is turning out super duper nice, so I think I'm going to go ahead and also line it while I'm at it. So I need to kind of reset some stuff here and find a fabric I want to line it with, and put my lining to my sides before I start sewing it together. All right, so I'll pause the camera and I'll do that. I'll find my fabric and we'll be right back. All right, so I have grabbed one of my favorite lining leathers. It's just this paisley design. It's actually got a little bit of a sparkle in the gold to it. I love lining bags with this particular fabric. It's really nice, but yet when I look at this fabric, it's not something I would ever think I would pick. So anyway, all I'm going to do is line the front and back panels with this though. Okay, so I'm going to lay this out here flatly, set that over it, make sure that the piece I cut out does fit nicely, and then, like so many other things, I'm just going to run me a bunch of double-sided tape on the back of this. You could also just use Super 77 spray adhesive. That's another good one. You would spray this, and then after a minute or two, you put the two together. I'm not doing that, though, because there's a lot of overspray involved in that, and I don't want it all over my camera and my desk and everywhere else. So, double-sided tape for the win, okay? But yes, generally when I'm making a project, I use the Super 77 spray adhesive and get it done. I think honestly that I use so much of this tape just because we have so much of it in stock. If I was having to keep going to the store for it, I would be a lot more frugal with it. Okay. Alright, one more good piece of tape and we'll call this sucker taped. Now, everything I'm doing right now is preparing for final assembly of the bag, attaching the gussets to the sides, okay? And I bring that up because I want to sew the soft side first. So not this one. This side's kind of rigid because of the inlay and all that stuff. When I go to sew my gussets to my sides, I will sew the side that just has that pocket on it first. And I'll show you why once we're to that point, but I want to make sure that I bring it up. So, all right, so that's gonna fit on there. All I have to do now is just remove the backing off of all of my tape. Okay, and this is just temporarily holding the fabric on there until once I sew it all into the seams, it'll be fine. Alrighty. Stick that bad boy on there, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other side, and then I'm going to take my scissors and just trim it down a little bit. I'm not trimming it all the way to the leather, but I'm going to get it pretty close because I have to put clips on here. Okay? So sounds like a helicopter in here. Janie's over there rolling up a big ball of yarn for her rug. You may not even be able to hear it because of the microphone, but best thing I ever did is get microphones for this camera system so that all the background noise finally is out. Because just on the other side of the classroom wall is actually a storage storage shed for a bunch of like equipment and tractor equipment type stuff, and sometimes I'll hear those things fire up right in the middle of a video, and I don't hear them in the video, so that's good. Anyway, all right, so I trimmed it up about yay much, and then here in a minute I will start clipping this thing together, but I need to do the exact same thing on this other piece. So once again, I'll stop the camera, I'll stick that together, and then when we come back, we'll start clipping the gussets to the sides. All right, so I've got both pieces lined, and now I need to start clipping this piece to the gusset. Okay, so I'm going to find those centers again and line those centers up. And again, I'm doing the side that doesn't have the ring in it. Okay, and I'll show you why when we get back over to the sewing machine in just a minute. I'm going to start with that top center there, and I'll put a clip on it. And then I instantly move down and I put one on the bottom center. And then the rest of it's just going to be filling up space all the way around it. And I always clip my centers together because if I don't, I find that as I clip all the way around the bag, I might have like a big buildup or lack of space. I mean, the gusset doesn't quite clip together correctly. But if I have already got it split in half, then it's not near as bad, and I might be able to just kind of split the difference on what's not fitting right. All right. And then the other thing I want to watch is those seams on the inside, get where you can see it there, these seams and how they line up with that pocket top, okay? If one of them is way crazy higher than that pocket top, then you will see it. But if they're both relatively close, then you won't. So that's a goal. Okay, so we're just going to clip it all the way around. I just put one every few inches. Some people like to very securely clip it, just thousands of clips, and to each their own. Whatever you need to do to make yourself prepared to sew, that's all that matters. Anyway, I'm going to finish clipping this up, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to talk about the presser feet on the sewing machine. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I have to change out my presser feet now. I'm going to use my welting feet, and what they do is they go over that piping really nicely. They form a little channel. Zoom in here and you can see it. All right. They form a little channel in between the center foot and the presser foot that piping just rides really nicely in. It's almost like a train track for it to follow. Now, that being said, it's very easy to get off that track accidentally, but it does help a lot as opposed to just trying to sew it with a normal set of presser feet. All that being said, I can sew this with a normal set of presser feet, but if I have the right equipment, why not use it? I did my first 5 or 6 piped projects with just my standard presser feet before someone told me that there was such a thing as a welting and piping foot. So once again, when you teach yourself stuff, there's still lots of things you don't know. So I'm just taking off the my standard feet here, and then I'll replace them with these welting feet, and then we'll get back to stitching. The piping foot I'm using for the size piping I have here, sometimes I use a 3/16, sometimes I use a 1/4 inch foot. I haven't really noticed a huge difference in the two. It's just literally I have both, and whichever one I grab first is the one I end up using. So today it was a 3/16. Tomorrow it could be a 1/4. Who knows? Okay, so I got my feet changed out, and they're mostly straight. Yeah, that'll work. Let me cycle the machine here once, make sure those feet are on there good and straight. Now, I'm going to sew this on. Now, I like to start down here at the very bottom where it's flat. And that way, when I come all the way back around, if I've got a little bit of room that I need to make up or something, it's very easy to work that into under the presser foot and stuff because I'm on a flat side of the bag. All right, but that's just me. There's a million ways to skin this cat. That just happens to be the way I like to do it. Okay, so here we go. I've got that welt, the piping just right inside that foot there. And as I stitch this thing together, it'll be real nice and tight up against that piping cord, which is exactly where I want it. And as I sew along, I'm just going to remove clips and stitch. Now, these little corners can be a little bit tricky, but what you have to do is, I always stop my machine with the needle down, okay? I lift my presser foot and I just adjust this extra material, this extra leather over out of the way as I kind of turn this to go around that corner. And that'll make sure that I don't accidentally sew any creases or anything like that into the bag. Now, the reason that we talked about sewing the soft side of this bag together first is because when I go to sew the second side on there, I'm going to need to bend down. Notice how I can bend this down and out of the way of the top of the sewing machine. Well, with the top, with the soft side being what's going to be up here once that's sewn together, that'll be a lot more, that'll be a lot easier to do than if it was the hard side that has the tooling leather and the inlay and all that other stuff on it. So that's why I like to sew the soft side together first, because once I flip it over, it'll make sewing that second side together a lot easier. So here we go, and I'm just stitching all the way around. Once again, I'm following that piping with my piping foot. And you can see back here where it's just really nicely sewn in there and really tightly sewn in right up against that piping. And that's why that foot is really nice to have, is because it helps you get in there good and tight up against that piping cord. Okay, so there's no secret to this. I'm literally just sewing all the way around the bag. So once again, I'm going to save everybody some time by pausing the video. I will continue sewing all the way around, and I'll turn the video back on once we get to the end. Okay, so I sewed all the way around, and then I just sewed back over to do a couple of over stitches here. And now I will pull my project out from under the machine, and we'll turn it right side out and kind of see how we did on it. And that'll tell us what we need to do for the next side, if anything. Okay. Alright, so let me turn this sucker right side out here, and we'll see how our piping looks on it. Alright, so we've got a really good start here. Piping looks good, edges look good, everything looks pretty good so far. So we're going to take the other side, and we're literally going to do everything exactly the same. We're going to clip it up the same, bring it over here and sew it up the same, and we'll be back in just as soon as we have it ready to sew up, we'll bring it back over here, and I'll show you again what I was talking about the top of it being able to hit the top of the machine there. So we'll be back. Alright, so again, I clipped up the second side the same way as the first side. One thing I do want to say is this has a flat bottom on it. You want to make sure that the flat bottom on this side matches the flat bottom on the, on the other side. If it doesn't, then you will have what I like to call a whomper-jawed purse. It will not be straight. So, if you just make sure those two sides match up, you'll be okay. Okay? Now, here's what we're talking about. Right now, the top of this purse is bumping up against the sewing machine, and the bottom of the purse is not in the sewing machine. Okay? And so this is why I was talking about, now that since this is the soft side, I can fold that back and out of the way and get it up there under there where I need it. All right? Now, I'm going to sew this side exactly like I sewed the other side. And you can watch me for a minute, but I'm going to stop the camera and get her done. Okay, So I get it under here. Once again, I'm going to kind of do it in the flat area of the bottom, because that's where I know that I can make up any issues that I have once I get all the way around it. Okay, hold my 2 threads, start stitching. Okay, and I'm not back stitching because I'm going all the way around the project, so I'll do my locking stitches at the very end and just go back over that first part. Okay, so we're going to go around this corner here. Just like that. As we stitch, we remove clips and work our way around and get her done. Again, we will, I'll just continue going all the way around. Nothing to it. If I run into any issues, I'll turn the camera back on so that we can discuss what the issue might be and what we're going to do to fix the issue. But so far, I don't see where there will be any issues. So when I come back, we'll be back at the table and we'll talk about sewing a binding onto here to hold our liner in place so that our liner doesn't fray and look ugly. Okay, so here we go. All right, so that's sewed together without incident. Now, I'm going to talk about the bias tape that I'm going to use to bind this edge so that you don't see this frayed edge of your fabric here, okay? And what I'll end up having to do is trim the lining off, even with the leather, like this. And it adds a lot of work to do this, but it's worth it. Having a lined bag with nice clean edges and stuff, it commands a higher price and a higher level of respect as far as a finished project goes, as opposed to a naked leather inside. Okay. I don't line everything, don't get me wrong, but some things just turn out really, really nice. And if they're already going that nicely, you might as well do everything you can to get the most, the highest price out of it and whatever else you can get. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to trim these. I'm going to show you my bias tape that I will sew around it. And it just fits right around the edge. And then once again, I have to go all the way around it on the sewing machine again. I'm going to show you that, but I'm not going to actually sew it right at this time because I need to get this video ready and out there for the folks that have been waiting for it. If you need to see the sewing of the bias tape, the Classy fringe purse that we recently did has this exact same method of lining and sewing the bias tape around the edge and everything, and you can refer to that video, and then you'll see it. Okay. But, like I said, I'm going to trim this and then I'm going to turn it right side out so we can see how we've done here. There we go. All right, so this bias tape, I get it at any fabric store. Matter of fact, Walmart carries it. How it works is it's already pre-folded and everything. I'll just cut a little piece of it off so we can see it here. But it's already pre-folded and it's double folded, so it also doesn't have a naked edge on the edge of your project. And all you have to do is just wrap it around the edge of your project and sew it on there. And yeah, and it covers up that edge really nicely and has a really nice finished effect to it. I'll have to put my standard feet back on my sewing machine to do it. But again, that's something I'll do later on. I just wanted to show you the process so that you could get it done. Now, I'm going to open these zippers a little bit so that I can turn the bag right side out, and we'll see how we did. Normally, I'm real big about making sure I open the zipper before I sew the bag closed. But with these higher end, these Everbright zippers, it's not as important because you can actually open it from the outside of the bag. Bring bring this up a little bit. Other way, sorry. Still learning this thing. I need a joystick. Alright, so now I'm going to turn the bag right side out. And I usually take off my watch and my cuff to do that. Now I want to first fold the leather back where the zipper is so that that zipper doesn't scratch the rest of the bag as it comes through the opening. Okay, now I want to try to do this with as little bit of trauma, I guess you could say, to the tooled portion as possible. All right, so I'm really going to work hard to try to keep that tooled portion as straight as I can, but I am going to have to wrinkle it up just a little bit to get it to turn right side out. Okay, I have not found a secret or a way to do that easier, but I do try to be gentle with it as I go. Okay, so here we go, we're almost there already. Luckily this is a small bag. Like magic, here it comes. Okay, and then after I turn it right side out, I always go all the way around and kind of pinch my edges down really nicely so that they'll form up well. Oh, still got a corner needs to be popped out there. There we go. Continue pinching my edges down. There we go. All right, so now zipper up. You can put little tails or something on your zipper pieces so that they're easier to grab. But overall, this project is about done. Okay, the only thing we hadn't really talked about is our shoulder strap. Okay, but that is a pretty nice purse. I'd be willing to bet Janie Sue's going to take this from me pretty quickly. She wasn't as impressed with the blue one, but when I showed her this one as it was coming together, she was pretty impressed. Now, this is my shoulder strap. I am going to burnish the edges of it and everything. I might even line it with a dark colored leather or something, I'm not sure. But all I'm going to do is take and put my swivel hooks on it, and then I can either rivet or sew them into place right there. Okay, no big secret to it. If you've watched any of my videos, you've already are well beyond being able to do that yourself. But that's it. It's been a great project. I'm really excited about the Canteen Purse. It's a very attractive project. It comes together really well. It's not a difficult build at all, even though there are a lot of steps to it, of course. And again, it doesn't matter if you have a sewing machine or not. Anybody can make this project. You just have to do it by the numbers. You can't be intimidated by the entire project. You just work on each process as it goes. It's not a huge deal. Okay? So, as always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the video and I will answer every single one of them. And appreciate you watching. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply. Have a great day.